So thank you, Jasmine. I think what we'll do is we'll make this into a dialogue conversation. I have specific questions against your name, but please feel free to come in. And the context, just if I could take a couple of minutes to set the context. We're looking at rapid technological advancement. I think as CIOs, each one of you are uniquely placed. And that to drive this transformation, to build that competitive edge for your organizations. And in that context, the use of AI, and I'm a skeptic, so I have a big question mark, and we'll explore that. Your experience will be handy. And then this other piece about the application of AI, and somewhere this cognitive word comes up quite often, and it feels as if, as business leaders, as human beings, we don't contribute that much. End of the day, the algorithm is giving us a choice, and the final decision rests there. So that's the other part, I think, data insights, decision making, which is the application part. We'll talk about that, making informed choices. The third piece is more about, I would say, cross-functional teams, where we're saying synergy. Earlier, I was just a tech leader. I was looking at processes, and that's it. That was my domain. But I think now with this, it's a huge change. A large part of our job is about getting the right talent, and enabling this whole business world. So whether I'm a CIO or a CTO, I'm looking at product-driven strategy, or whether I'm looking at changing processes at the back end, the cloud architecture. So all of those choices we are making, and at the same time, I need to have data governance and ethics in place also. So that's the third thing, and I think, with these three elements is what, we would try and explore. So the three sections which I have, and I straight away get into the big topic, which is AI adoption, and maybe Vinod, I can start with you, and say broader digital transformation strategies, your experience, your company, otherwise what you've seen. How are organizations integrating actually the whole AI?
I think first of all, I'd like to say that, being a cynic is kind of an occupational hazard with us CIOs. There have been too many magic solutions and silver bullets that we've seen over the years that unfortunately didn't pan out quite the way that we expected. Let me just for a minute step back, and when we talk about digital strategy, when we talk about digital transformation strategy as such, and when you add a new technology into the mix like AI, how do you think about it? The way I've thought about it, the way my organizations have thought about it is actually as one more tool in the arsenal. Standalone, is this transformative in and of itself? Probably not. However, taken in combination with other technologies, incredibly powerful. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. So today, the conventional wisdom of the organization is stored in your systems of record, in your transaction systems. You do a transaction in an ERP, you punch in a sales order to a customer. What is often missing in transaction systems is that little bit of intelligence that tells you that, boss, this guy never pays you on time, you're putting this kind of an order on it. Now, programming that beyond a point becomes, an overload on the system. But what if you had a voice behind you kind of looking at that and saying, you may want to think about doing this transaction in the first place, or if you do it, please do it in full cognizance that this guy pays you 30 days late. Because it's not required that the guy who's doing the transaction is thinking about these things. In an ideal world, he would be. But the truth is that oftentimes your transactional arms are disjointed from your strategic views on things. Like, okay, we had a board sitting and saying we need to tighten credit policy. Is that message going out to the last mile, the last guy who's punching the sales order? Probably not. What if you could augment that to point out these red flags in the system? I'm sending something, it has a due date of this. I know that the likelihood from a supply chain point of view, it's not going to get there by then. Would it help if I got this flag in real time saying, देखो 50% है, you might want to conserve the stock and send it somewhere else, for example. And I think that is really what I call around the edges, and that is where I see a lot of, value for money coming from AI is around the edges. So we look at AI from a strategy point of view, to come back and close that loop, as that piece that fills those gaps around the edges that are today very, very subjective and today very, very person and knowledge oriented. So if we provide these nudges to behavior that are based on algorithmic or experiential inference,
Yes.
then you eliminate one whole dimension of I didn't understand, and you resolve this gap between the strategic and the operation level of the organization. And I think we all understand that even a few percentage points of gap resolution is going to actually take up your earnings hugely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's how I see it strategically. How does AI play in DX? That's where I see it play.
Sure, no, absolutely. The whole inertia goes away, between the business processes. What about you, Ninad?
Yeah, thanks. In fact, firstly, thank you to DNB for inviting us to this particular elite panel in front of this august audience here. I understand that the audience is looking forward to, with rapt attention, to what we are talking about. And Vinod did elucidate the importance of AI. And I just wanted to kind of touch base on your skepticism, which you mentioned about AI. Whilst I'm both, I'm a skeptic as well as a positive thinker. I'll not delve into the theoretical aspect. Let's talk about certain use cases, practicality. Right? I come from the manufacturing sector as of now, having worked with several other sectors, but manufacturing is something which I am truly sort of very close to. So we obviously, like all other very large-scale enterprise organizations, we have also embarked on this so-called digital transformation journey. And as a part of it, we are trying to employ this AI as well, in addition to 3D printing. So I'll just give you use cases, and it's funny incidents as well. I like to kind of quote those incidents, and these are real life incidents I have kind of gone ahead and seen with my own eyes here. So first and foremost is, so our organization makes and builds whirlpools, jacuzzis and all cool things, lifestyle things, right? And everybody loves it. But how do these jacuzzis and whirlpools reach the customers in the first place? In what shape and form? And how do we provide the user experience to customers? So that's where we thought we'll get this entire new age technology and the AI infused sort of whirlpools. So we were kind of on the drawing board in the plant, in the lab we're talking about. And we tried to introduce this foam concept, right? Normally what you do is you put this foam manually into the bathtub in the jacuzzis, and this entire foam comes out, right? So we thought that why don't we induce this entire AI, use digital transformation and do it automatically. And so we tried that, and we kept it overnight. In the morning we came back to the lab, the entire lab was full of foam. Because of course the AI misfired somewhere. I did not take into consideration certain biases, and that's where this entire problem occurred. But that obviously helped us in sort of resolving this problem, and that's how AI is as such. So we have to try and test it out in our own methods and ways. There is no silver bullet like he mentioned earlier. Whilst there's a lot of theory, but then practicality is something which we keep talking about. On the other hand, there are a lot of positive aspects as well. Now, from the positive standpoint, AI certainly helps in positive personalized recommendations, right? In today's day and age of e-commerce, it's all hyper-personalization. So if you look at Amazons of the world, Flipkarts of the world, and all the others, they are all hyper-personalizing everything, right? You go to your app, it logs you on sort of automatically, it knows your preferences, it can go ahead and order automatically for you right up to your refrigerator, and that's where the IoT also comes into picture, right? So AI, IoT, digital transformation may seem like buzzwords, but they are here to stay. Collectively, in combination, it can do wonderful for the organization and to the customers as well. And the other is from the operations. That was from the customer satisfaction standpoint, experience standpoint. The other piece is the operational efficiencies as well. Imagine, so I had an opportunity of visiting this great automobile factory in Germany, and there were only one person. In this mega factory, there was only one person. Rest, everything was robots. Right? AI-enabled 3D printers and everything was robots. And the reason that they could do this is that's where the predictive analytics and maintenance comes into picture. You lead a lot of predictive analytics yourself as well. So it can analyze and predict and maintain, all these gizmos and gadgets and robotic arms and all by itself. It can predict if a robotic arm is going to default at some point in time. So it goes ahead and orders those parts. It replaces it in non-peak functional hours. And that's how the predictive analytics maintenance comes into picture. And that's where AI plays a very pivotal role, because this is all driven by AI. So those are the practical use cases that I thought that probably I'll elucidate, I'll bring this to table rather than talking about theory as such.
Yeah, no,
I just hope that addresses your question.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I love the application on the e-commerce sites, I don't need to go through so many comments now. It gives you pros and cons of making that decision. I think the industrial automation and that 4.0, that application is also huge. Now, behind all of this, and if I could bring in Manoj here, there are some considerations we do, but behind all of this simplicity, there are so many challenges. One of them which Ninad was mentioning, but we need to keep trying. So my question to you is, are there any essential consideration, key challenges, which we face as CIOs? And then, is there got any implications for our use of AI or not?
I think it's a very open-ended question, and I can go on for quite some time. But let me just touch upon some of the very important aspects. So I belong to EPC industry, which is engineering, procurement, and construction. And this is the industry which actually builds so many infrastructural assets, or things like, for example, this entire construction is done by an EPC company, right? The electrical gadgets are provided by electrical companies. Now, all these years, this industry has been a laggard in technology adoption. People always believe that there has to be a person who has to be on the ground, who has to physically see that, physically do something which is there. And in fact, the data was also extremely uneven, and this is for centuries. This is the industry which goes back to many centuries which are there. The amount of change the industry 4.0 that is brought in has been absolutely mind-boggling for this country. Okay. Now, let me just give a very brief example of, so as Sterling Wilson, we built solar plants, and world's largest solar plant was operated by us in Abu Dhabi. Now, there's a peculiar challenge in Middle East is that if the temperature goes beyond a particular limit, tends to be around 50 degrees, you have to let your all workers go. Nobody can be on this which is there. Now, the solar plant to continuously generate efficiently needs continuous cleaning of panels, because if it gathers the dust, then the efficiency goes down and you're wasting the time. Okay, now in traditional sense, it was taken for granted that this will happen, and during the peak times of the summer, the efficiency will go down. Now, the solution that was designed and implemented was actually have robots doing it. So there are like 1,500 robots who are actually cleaning the, at any climate, any temperature, they always there to clean it up. And this entire thing was, of course, managed with a algorithm, with taking the actual, the sense of the cleanliness of the panel using a drone. And I think this is one of such examples which is there, which then, of course, next comes the IoT, which takes the reading of the generation every 2 minutes, fits it there. So anybody sitting in Australia, India, China can monitor any plant anywhere in the world which is there. Now, some of these interventions have rapidly, believed that you can actually go. It's in a civil construction, industry 4.0, for your equipment, scheduling, planning, idle, this analysis, you're managing your batching plants, doing your logistics, supply chain, everything is coming very. Now, this was a good part of the digital transformation. Everybody wanted it because it really helped them in their day-to-day work. Some people lost their information power because that power was with them, and then it became. But I think that was a very minor blessing, and this which is there. So I think until that point it was good. RPAs were good because it automated a lot of things which are there. To the extent cognitive computing was welcome because we could read the RFI, you could read RFI, you could have QR codes, you can track material. The vendor invoices were just scanned and put into your account payable system. But when it came to cognitive AI, I think as skeptical you are, I think everybody is very skeptical because this is where it's a tipping point because the decision making is getting out of your hand and it is being done by the computer. I think this is where at least I could talk about my industry and a lot of the other colleagues like the ones that we are sitting in. I think the entire solution of any AI intervention is being very carefully analyzed. It's being kind of, there are 5 or 6 different dimensions. But it is ethics, it is a cost, it is impact, sustainability, and so on and so forth, which is there. And very importantly, I think it is a context and the culture of the organization, which is very, very important. So, I think AI is very much on the plate of everybody. It is something which is in the sight of every business leader. It is in sight of every CIO. That's one field which is getting, I think, everybody together to think alike. But the progress, I would say, has been, the adoption has been very fast when the impact is low. But when it is a very complex and game-changing solutions, I think the path has been treaded very cautiously. And I think there's a lot that we have to learn and we have to adopt. But there's a lot of excitement, and I think AI is something that everybody is looking forward to embrace with a knowingly. I mean, not something which is left unknown, and then it is. So I think this is in a summary of where we are today.
Sure. No. I think be cautiously optimistic. Choose the places where you want the intervention. So okay. So let me summarize that. We should know where and how. Now, just going back to the business process. Just for the audience here. So if I assume that Gen-AI or AI is here to stay, how do I decide, right? And that decision is about I have traditional business processes running, multiple of them, right? How do I make that choice that this is the right process to pick up? And that whole trade-off between cost benefit, and largely the other part is not just cost benefit, but how do I demonstrate cost reduction, operational efficiency? If I could come to you, Vinod, then maybe anyone else who has any view on this.
So I think the first thing in terms of candidature is really what pains you the most today. As we know, there are several jobs, and particularly our lines of business, which involve personal risk, which involve safety, which involve people going out to collect data, for instance, or people going out to fix things. The more you minimize that, the more safe you make it, the more productive you make yourself. So when you look at it from, okay, what happens if I get it wrong? You would rather err on the side of operations that involve risk, that involve safety, that involve, shall I say, productivity in a very non-numbers way, but more in a impact way.
Sure.
So in high impact, difficult environments where anyway you get it, let's say today you have somebody that is making a call in the field and he's getting it right 50% of the time. That's dartboard. That's as good as not deciding at all. Now you find that technology investment takes you to 60, 65%. It doesn't have to take you to 100. I think that delta between 50 and 60 is transformational largely to most industries. From a cost avoidance, from a risk avoidance, from a controllership. So to come back to my other ERP example, what is the cost of preventing you from making a faulty transaction? What is the cost of preventing you from doing risky financial or compliance behavior? What is your, to go back to my stats background, your type A error or your type B error, you really are saying what is my alpha and what is my beta here, and which makes sense to me. And I think there are hundreds of cases where this alpha is higher. So I'd always look at those processes where I can actually eliminate or have a benefit in terms of a necessarily non-financial parameter.
Right. No, absolutely. I prioritize by saying that where the wait time is the highest. My critical, processes are waiting long, and then can I, enable that? And I completely agree. Today I am at 20%. If it takes me to 60%, that's a huge win. Yeah, absolutely. Anything either of you, Nad, you want to add?
Sure, I'll again sort of talk about the use cases. In our organization, so we embarked on this digital transformation journey a while back, right? And the first process that we took on, thinking that it's going to be a very easy process, less of challenges. Believe me, it is not. However, the first process that we took over was HR. All right, the all important HR, because it is so close to everybody's heart. Compensation, pay slips, and so on and so forth. So how do we automate everything? So we deployed, in addition to, in conjunction with the HR friends here, we deployed this great looking, great sort of problem solver chatbot, which is AI infused, Gen AI revolutionized, right? And then we did a lot of noise, created a lot of noise. This is what it is. It became like a HR help desk global. And ours is a global organization dealing in 55 countries, right? We have own offices in 55 countries. To be very honest, when I joined, even I wasn't aware that we are in 55 countries, right? So truly global organization, a large workforce. And because it's a large workforce, people are scattered everywhere across the world, and they work mostly on the virtual mode. These conversations are happening on the virtual mode. That's one of the reasons that we wanted to bring in centralized capabilities for the HR help desk. Now, the first use case was obviously, since it's HR help desk, people are supposed to sort of enter their queries, questions, talk to the chatbot, and the chatbot, remember, the Gen AI infused chatbot is supposed to respond to them with the appropriate resolution as well. And it went off pretty well. All right, so the queries came down to almost like a negligible 1 digits. From like a double, triple digit, it came down to 1 digit. And everybody was happy. Oh, wow, it's really nice. The HR was commemorated, the tech guys were commemorated, appreciated, and so on and so forth. What happened was quite revealing. So after and post this, it came to light that now it was also being used for performance evaluation. Now, when it comes to performance evaluation, the manager is supposed to evaluate the performance with having a dialogue, a one-to-one dialogue, right? I mean, how is your performance, questions, answers. The team members are supposed to respond with appropriately crafted on-ground responses with evidences, right? And here, what we're thinking is, the managers are using the same chatbot to arrive at the questions, the KRAs and the KPIs, and over and above that, the respondents, the team members of the same team, they are using the same chatbot to respond because it's on a virtual mode, right? So imagine the performance evaluation is happening on the virtual mode, and the manager is shooting the questions, whereas the team members are using the same chatbot to respond to them, getting the responses, and then elucidating, verbally describing the responses. And in the end, everybody got A, grade A. All right? So, and as you rightly mentioned, I think you mentioned that, treading cautiously, is the word. So whilst you'll have the positives, you'll have to also look at the negatives, and you'll have to pivot accordingly, So you'll have to change your path, change the routine, change everything to get the right responses and everything in order. So obviously we had to go back, we started putting some restrictions, then revisited our drawing boards, and how can we not allow this to happen. So all these things, and still we are struggling. We are kind of talking about it, we are on the drawing board, we have not kind of implemented that, the second piece. So tread cautiously, but that doesn't mean that we should not use it, or we should shy away from that, because yes, to err is human, but to not try is a sin. All right, so we should try till we succeed, and then leap forward.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because, so in production management, we used to learn this, that don't spend time identifying the constraint, declare that this is the constraint, and the real constraint will automatically reveal itself, so I think, experimentation is absolutely important. I may not pick up the HR team though. So how about you, Manoj?
I think a lot has been said by both of the panelists. One of the things, what I feel is that your AI is influenced quite a lot by your competition. If your competition is ahead of you in the game in this, then obviously you are forced to kind of catch up. Okay? But apart from that, the way that typically we pick up a process area is typically a turnaround time of the process end to end. If you've got a real problem in terms of number of days, hours it takes. Second very important thing is about where your talent crunch, where you don't have really skilled people who are available in so many numbers, or if the turnaround of those talents is very high, then obviously it's a God-gifted solution where you can actually put an AI around it. Third very important thing is that your total cost of operations. But this is where you have to really see whether by putting a solution, is your cost going up? Your human cost might go down, but your technology cost might go up. And I think the fourth very important thing is where the leadership has certain priorities which are very clearly defined, and they would like to kind of achieve something out of this, and which is not possible in today's this. So we traditionally resort to automation, RPAs and those kind of accelerators and automations. But I think AI can make a real difference in terms of thinking differently. And second is addressing your talent crunch. Having said that, one very important considerations, at least for the EPC industry, I would say is that your AI cannot be effective and optimum unless you are on cloud. So it is not cloud first, it is cloud only. Can really get you those kind of benefits, because Gen-AI cannot work in your limited, on-premise kind of databases. So as an organization, you also have to be very mindful of the fact that there's a lot that you also need to do on the ground level before you really scale up to an effective use of AI.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Infrastructure is important. I think the other thing which is important is data, because whatever we do, whatever processes we identify, if we don't have sufficient data, the right quality, so, and that's where I'll go next,
And just to add to that, data, homogenization or harmonization is important, because if you got 2 or 3 different sources where the data is really not talking to each other, then you have a big problem. Right. You won't be able to really make it effective.
Yeah. So, and there are 2 parts to the problem, right? What you feed in then only results in an actionable insight, So let me come to you, Ninad. Maybe just this whole, the data part of it, how you addressing that, and then maybe we can also talk about the enabling infrastructure to have that right data available, and then you train the algorithm, it is ready, and then you're leading to actionable insight. So the back-end part, if you can spend some time on data, the governance, availability, homogenization, and how are you addressing that?
All right, too many adjectives out here. Let me kind of be, I just hope that I am I'm able to address these.
Yeah,
right?
no, so let me say qualify. I have a CRM system, I have an ERP system, I have a supplier monitoring system.
Yeah.
End of the day, this data resides in silos.
Absolutely.
I need to bring all of that together, then
Absolutely.
only I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so let me touch base on this before I delve into what our organization has started now on the journey. Before that, let me take a step back and talk about how AI helps in harmonizing this data and the quality that you spoke about, the governance also you spoke about. Data is very, very crucial. There is no doubt about it. There have been enough and more adjectives being spoken about data. Data is the oil, data is the soil, data is the blood, data is everything, right? And we all know about this, right? I mean, Amazons of the world, it's all about data. So we all know about this. So coming back to this, A is consolidation of this data. It's absolutely essential. And nowadays, there's enough and more said about a data cloud. So very large organizations, and of course, Vinod would agree with me, his is a very large organization. So is his. Probably we are a very small organization. But they are disparate systems, right? There is, as you rightly pointed out, there's ERP, there is CRM, there is Salesforce, there is a lot of other systems, inbound, outbound, internal, external. So how does one consolidate this data? First and foremost is, first of all, we need to understand what the data sources. Where all the data resides, where is it getting originated from, who is using it, what types of data, is it useful, is it not useful? Believe me, I'm saying that once you get into this, you'll realize, and I can bet my life on this, is at least 25 to 35% of data is not required. You can totally purge it. It's absolutely not required. I don't know why it is just residing there. So once you identify that, now you're saddled with 75% data, let's say for example. Now we have to do real magic with that data, right? Now the first and foremost thing is you prepare that data, you massage that data, you clean that data, to make it more relevant, not even meaningful, but more relevant. To make it more meaningful, you will have to identify the missing items now. Once you identify the missing items, then you probably use certain tools to make sense of that data. Like I said, the data types, relevancy of data, importance, criticality of data. More often than not, the data is available in public domain. It is available, all right, but you don't need to kind of do anything about it. The second question about when you spoke about is the infra piece as well. Absolutely essential that we need to have a right infra mapped for the right type of data. There is no point in having a super juiced up sort of infra for non-relevant data itself. It is going to kill the organization, doesn't mean any sense. So if it is productive, production-based data, it is critical, it is essential, and it means business relevancy for the organization, by all means, one should deploy the best of the infra, whether it is in the cloud, whether it is in the on-prem, absolutely, as you need to. And if it is AI related, then cloud makes sense because of the elasticity, because of the flexibility, scalability, and so on and so forth. So that's from the infra standpoint. Map the right infra set to the right data set. Right. Let's talk about the governance piece which you spoke about, right? Governance is absolutely essential when it comes to AI-infused data, all right? First and foremost is, let's ensure the data availability, visibility, and also the accuracy of data. Now, let's say, for example, if you are running an AI algorithm on data, let's say, example, you have consolidated first, missing items, everything is fine. Now you have to run an AI algorithm onto it, right? Choose the right AI algorithm. Okay, of course, popular right now, it's all Gen-AI and so on and so forth. ChatGPT, you have Gemini, you have so many hundreds and thousands of coming up. Maybe daily there are like hundreds of thousands of coming up, right? So how do we choose that? So select the most appropriate. I wouldn't say the best. Select the most appropriate, suitable for your use case, and then run that algorithm on that. And believe me, there's no point in doing it yourself within your closed sandbox environment. There are hundreds of platforms available. Use them for a POC, sandbox them for your environment using that tool, and then go about doing it, right? However, from the governance standpoint, security is very, very important. Data types is very important. Protect your data, safeguard your data. One aspect is explainability. So the first is openness. The second is explainability. When I'm talking about openness of the data, is be transparent, which means that if you are running an AI algorithm and you're putting an output out there, mention that this output is used by AI, using AI. That brings transparency, okay, to the customer. The second is explainability. One needs to explain the outcome, how the outcome has been derived, That brings in transparency and openness for the customer, and the customer can then make a calculated decision whether I have to use it or not use it. And if you kind of map the reliability and the explainability, chances are probably 90% of the time the customers would believe, have that confidence, and start using it. So that's where the governance also comes into picture. That's where the utilization comes into picture. I spoke about the infra piece. I spoke about the data piece. Coming back to, I'll just spend 1 minute more on this from our organization standpoint. What did we do? As like I said, we had scattered information. So what we did is we went through this journey, and the reason I was able to illustrate it because we went through that journey. We consolidated, we ran the AI algorithm, and most importantly, we went for the data cloud. So we consolidated all data sources into one cloud environment. Now it is elastic, it is flexible, it is scalable, and it is of course verifiable as well, you know. So that is something which I would suggest. This is a journey that everybody should follow. Not an advice, just a suggestion, a recommendation.
Sure.
Yeah, hope that addresses.
Sure. Anything, Vinod, you would want to add?
No, I mean, I think very, very comprehensive from Ninad, but the only additional point I'd say is really that to the choice of the algorithm and so on, one thing is that you should probably look at those use cases where you can't do it through conventional means. Because a lot of times the use cases that people prop up are actually programmable use cases.
Yes.
There's no requirement for artificial intelligence, and then because you know that now you have a benchmark and you can compare it, and these tools are the new shiny objects on the block, there's a tendency to do that. I think you take those problems that are not easily solvable by people.
Yeah, no, I think over-engineering, you know, so we were solving this problem pertaining to recasting of financial statements, detailed financial statements, you know, which is more of a, you know, I would say software engineering problem, you know, but then people try to over-engineer and say, okay, can AI do it, you know?
You certainly don't want artificial intelligence in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. Would you want to add something to this?
I think I'll just add two minor points which are there. One is that all of this, what you know, other two panelists have said about is actually making our role also very, very different. As CIOs, I think we have to now look at an overarching architecture, both in terms of the processes, data, in terms of infrastructural this, rather than just focusing on digitization and, you know, kind of making thing automation. So if you don't, internally, if you don't have that kind of a view, and if you are actually adding application without a due diligence of what it makes to your existing landscape, it might actually keep on creating a lot of disturbances to your AI roadmap. Second very important thing is you can't have all these knowledge and capabilities all under one roof. So I think we also have to choose right partners to get the advice who are based in their field to make your vision complete, your architectural you know, roadmap complete. If you try doing it all by yourself within your own team, it might get into a roadblock as you go ahead.
Yeah, so the other aspect which we've not spoken about is this coexistence, right, of legacy systems and the new infra which you're building. You know, and say for example, first party data, I don't know if any of you are handling it, maybe, you know, Jaquar would be, you know, and bringing it together in the cohesive ecosystem. You know, and then in that context, the growing challenge of cybersecurity, you know, and I'll just leave it open. Any of you would want to comment. One is this whole challenge of legacy systems coexisting, you know, because there is a cost which has been sunk in, you know, and then the new age coming in, and then you trying to also look at the cybersecurity aspect, which is ever evolving. How are you navigating those challenges? You know, or anything which you would tell this audience here that, okay, don't go there, I've tried that, not worth it.
If I can just take a very quick contrary view also, I think sometimes we over stress this challenge. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. When you have streaming data coming in, so I used to work for a very large retail company, and one of my conversations with a store manager went around, what are your crown jewels? And, you know, I went with the assumption that price and availability are your two crown jewels. And those are data that is streaming and changing all the time. So we engineered how we protect that. And the first thing that the store manager told me is that I'm not bothered about either of these. So after I put my job back in place, I said, what are you talking about? And he said, look, price, anybody can see it in my store. And availability changes so quickly that I don't know what it is. So, you know, how do I expect my competitors to know it, or how do I expect anybody to know it? And it made so much sense, because sometimes we look at this streaming data and think, what if somebody gets hold of it? On a lighter note, I am fond of joking in the boardroom that, you know, if somebody is capable of finding our data and understanding it better than we do, more power to them, because, you know, for heaven's sake, we don't always understand it when we first see it. So I would just say that sometimes you want to be clear what you're protecting. And to some extent, I think what you're protecting is your unique results and not your raw data itself as much as those unique results that either your customers or your internal stakeholders are liking.
Right, absolutely.
So in my opinion, because technology is so malleable, so flexible, what we deploy today becomes legacy tomorrow, right? So there's always going to be legacy in every organization, everything that you do. Like, say for example, if we deploy an AI algorithm today, the next couple of days there is something else who's going to come in and this is going to be treated as legacy. That's going to be there. You can't say no to it, you can't avoid it, right? The second piece is about your cybersecurity, right? And data protection is absolute pertinent, important, critical in today's day and age with the DPDP Act, with the IT Act and GDPR. It's all floating around. However, in my opinion, it's completely a misnomer. Imagine, and what are we talking about here? We go to a hotel, we go to a restaurant, promptly we give out all our information, right? Without even thinking twice. Yeah, there is, for example, you go to a restaurant, there is a menu, a digital menu which is coming up now. You scan it for the digital menu and all your information is already with them now.
Yes.
All right, so you have readily, without even giving any consent, you are already given all your information to them. And on the other hand, when it comes to corporates, comes to organizations, we are all our bells and whistles, alarm bells go up saying that no, we're not going to share this, we're not going to protect and all that stuff. So it's basically a misnomer, to be very honest. However, all of us have to do something which we have to do. Government is also obviously coming up with all the policies now, so we have to adhere to the compliances in as well. It's very important and pertinent to protect one's data. And how does one do that? Unfortunately, the so-called, the hackers, the dark web proponents, the deep web actors, threat actors, they are 10 steps ahead of us, 10 steps, probably 100 steps ahead of us. So whatever we deploy today from the cyber security standpoint, security postures, fabric and all right, there's always sort of gaps, loopholes, backdoors that people are going to find out. And that's another reason why largest of the large cyber security companies also getting sort of compromised nowadays,
right? Yeah.
Right? So all over the place right now. But yes, still we'll need to make sure that we build enough and more protection, those guardrails which have to come in and protect our data to the fullest. Yeah, I mean, it's not only about if the data is going to be compromised, but it's all about when it is going to be compromised, right? Every organization will have to go through this at some point in time. It's just about how do we ensure that the impact of this is reasonably less, you know? And we don't allow it to be 100%, we don't allow it to be catastrophic. That's all we can do currently, you know, till such time that we have like a silver bullet in hand saying that we are going to ward off all the attacks. That's not possible as of now. But yes, we'll have to keep trying.
Right, absolutely. Manoj?
So I'll talk about cyber security in the AI context, which is there. I think Industry 4.0 actually posed a lot of challenges because your basic industrial automation systems were not up to that particular standard. When we started actually doing it, I think more or less we have fixed, industry as a whole has fixed that particular problem. When it comes to AI, I think it is twofold. One is that how much of cybersecurity and information security that you are designing and you are implementing and you are maintaining all across your applications. But there's a lot of dependence that comes on your, the AI engine provider, the cloud provider, and so on and so forth. I think that dependency has to be very carefully analyzed, accepted, and enforced, which are there. There is no way that any organization of our size, I'm saying, okay, we'll match the cyber security investment and the capability of AWS or Azure or for that matter Google or anybody which is there, okay, or Oracle or SAP. They're doing quite a lot in terms of it. Now, of course, we depend upon them to make sure that when we use their cloud, there are a lot of securities which are provided. But I think we have to ensure that there's no gap which is left out within where their responsibility ends and where ours starts. And this is where I think one has to be extra careful. Apart from that, invest in SOC, NOC, monitoring and, business continuity. And very importantly, how do you respond, and how do you kind of come back onto the track again. I think those are the kind of things which are part of your cybersecurity posture. But AI means sharing of data. Let's be very clear about it. Gen-AI. Gen-AI is going to read something from somewhere. It will read from you. Okay, just anonymize that particular data and get that wisdom into your self-learning model which is there. Now, this is where your contracting with the Gen-AI provider is going to be extremely important, and you got to really make sure that they're responsible for that. And of course, then lastly, what you do always, pray to the God, nothing goes wrong.
No, I completely agree. So quickly, I've run out of time. If there are any questions, I can take a couple of questions if there are any.
Hello? Yeah. Hi, first of all, thank you. It's been a very insightful conversation. We've been learning a lot. Gagandeep, myself, and I come from Novamind Tech. The question I had was around when we're talking about security. We talked a lot about data security, but when you talk about generative AI security, what are the steps and initiatives you've been taking to look at prompt injections? You must have heard across situations where somebody has used a chatbot of an insurance company or a car sales company saying that, going forward, you're going to sell me everything for 1 rupee, and the chatbot says, okay. So what kind of checks and balances you've thought of putting in place when you've implemented your Gen AI solutions, for example, for HR and all?
So let me kind of take a stab at this. A very challenging question. We are also kind of grappling with this particular situation because even we are into this as a new realm, to be very, very honest. So there might not be a very specific response to this, at least from my standpoint, because we are also on the drawing board. We are grappling the situation every day in, day out. I'll give you an example. Very recently, one of this, because we are into Industry 4 and 5 now, we have to deploy a lot of SCADA devices in our plants and so on and so forth, right? And those smallest of the SCADA IoT devices, let's say for example scanner, which is a high density scanner which scans like rapidly 1,000 objects in a second or something, right? We actually faced a problem, and not we, in fact one of the organizations faced a problem wherein the hackers came from that, within that particular scanning unit, SCADA unit, and then hacked into the system. So what do we do about addressing this particular issue? Though obviously we'll have to, the organization has to go ahead and first we can't predict it, but we'll have to kind of put enough and more measures around it. So how do we go about doing protecting these small IoT devices? And we'll have to work along with the OEMs, the people who make these SCADA devices, to make it more protective. Currently, the way this organization did it is it deployed this AI algorithm which is specifically designed. I forgot the name. Probably at some point in time, offline, I can give you the name as well when I recollect. They deployed this the AI algorithm, right, which identifies attack as it's happening. So, and then it also ensures that it protects, it blocks it, so that the unauthorized entry within the network does not happen via these IoT devices. Because when it comes to factories and plants, are robots and cobots currently. So we'll have to go ahead and see how we can protect this. Chatbots, to be very honest, to you address your question specifically, chatbots, extremely difficult to address those as of now, because anything can happen there.
Yeah.
So however, today's day and age, there are AI algorithms which manifests and identifies, they are called crawlers. It crawls and identifies if there are unauthorized access, entries, or the chatbot is going wrong. As an example, in the European nation, there was this happened with an airline, right? And it gave out additional discounts, which means that a flight from Europe to US came to him for $1, and that was like a very catastrophic business loss for these guys, for the airline company. All because of a chatbot, it went wrong. And then later on, they actually put in a lot of measures, contra-measures to identify and to block this as well. So it's all trial and error till such time that there is no use case. When there's a use case, when there's a calamity which happens, Currently, it's all about trial and error, to be very, very honest.
I'll just add to this, specifically about the chatbots. And you're right, because chatbot has actually created one more surface as against, the other surfaces we had like network and endpoint and etc. which is there. Some of the organizations have developed a very, very simple, rules for that. For example, no file transfer in a chatbot. If you want to share something, give a URL, there's standard content, they can, kind of develop it. On the conversation, there will not be any data or file transfer. Rules for profanity. Rules about asking, questions which can get into data privacy or which are like prohibited. And this is so I think there are a lot of ground rules that, that an organization will have to actually develop based on the context of that particular function of that chatbot and what kind of information is, kind of getting exchanged. So there's no specific, kind of SOP for that, but in a context and things like file transfer, not allowed. You can develop those. There are certain tools, as what Ninad has already said, which are around chatbot protection, and it will be worthwhile looking at it and implementing those also along with that. Because that is creating one more surface, and we really have to take care of that. Apart from that, the cyber security, I think general principles, what posture that you would have taken, should be able to give you a sufficient ground to protect your applications and especially this conversational AI and chatbot kind of thing which is there.
Just to add to one more thing is, if you yourself try on any popularly known Gen AI tool, even in ChatGPT, Gemini, Bar, whatever it is, okay, you ask a question saying that how do I hack into systems, right? It will not provide you the response. It will tell you that I am not capable or I am not authorized to kind of respond to this particular question, right? So there are a lot of nuances which are built in, at least in the grade A category level chatbots and Gen AI tools as such. So these kind of things are available even today, but advanced maybe not.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, an interesting conversation. I'll try to simplify what we spoke. I think the first part was that yes, look at it in simple areas where implementation is easy. The ROI benefit is directional. If you progress positively, that's job well done. We don't need that much data as we believe is required. I think a lot of data which we have is not relevant, but we should keep them in a cohesive manner. I think the third part is on cybersecurity. Yes, do enough, but then be cognizant that the people who are out there to get you are already ahead of you. I think, so therefore, corrective measures, prevention is the key. That's what I think the last question was, that, how can we limit what is available? The last part which you didn't touch, but I'll still leave it out there, is, the sustainability part, how we bring that in. I think this use of technology also takes away a lot. Cloud, even though it's less, than the traditional mode, but then still, I think, and that is a journey we cannot do on our own. And that's a journey which we have to work with our partners, and thank you so much for your time. I hope the people here enjoyed it.